Hi, everyone. I am so happy to talk to Devan Sandiford today. Hi, Devan. How are you?
Good. How are you, Brune?
I'm good. Thank you. We are on opposite sides of the North American continent. I am in Toronto and you are currently in California, even though you live in Brooklyn, New York. You're visiting your family, and that is where you are going to be telling a story on Bodies of Stories this Sunday. So I'm really happy to have you on the show, finally. We started talking through Instagram a few months ago. I've been following your journey with storytelling. You've been following Bodies of Stories. And can you tell us a bit about like when you told a personal story for the first time?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that recently. I want to say the anniversary of my first live story is coming up. I want to say it was July 18, 2019. So almost a year ago now was the first time I got on a stage and shared a story from my life.
Wow. It's pretty impressive because since then you've told quite a few stories, am I right?
Yeah, a friend of mine was telling me I should compile a list, and I know of other storytellers who have done that, and I kind of have not, but I want to say it feels like I've told somewhere between 20 and 30 stories in that time. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, it's been a lot, but it's been absolutely enjoyable and one of the most fun things I've decided to do and to follow through with.
Yeah, what made you want to do it?
Yeah, I have always been a really reserved person growing up and never really shared anything from my life. And uh, I knew that I had a lot of things going on the inside of me that I didn't share with people around. And as I got older and older, it just became more and more apparent that that was not the best way to live. I didn't have, I had some very close friends, but outside of that, I didn't have very deep connections. Um, and I just decided that the best way to, find my voice was to start to open up about things about me. And usually the stories I tell are about like insecurities that I have and things that have been kind of holding me back. I try and share things that I feel like once I share them, I will be released from their grasp on me. So that kind of was the motivation for starting to tell stories and to really own my voice.
Yeah, wow. And by telling your stories, it helps release those things for the audience as well. So it works both ways. It's pretty cool. Um,
I
so
really love the
go
I
ahead.
wanted to say I really love the way that sharing the stories really connects you to people afterwards. I think that's my favorite part of telling stories is having those conversations after where people can relate to your story, even though they're a completely different person and their experience was completely different. But just the emotions and the being connected afterwards feels really great.
Yeah, you've had people come up to you after telling your story, and yeah,
Yeah, I would say almost anytime I share something very vulnerable, people will stop afterwards to thank me for being vulnerable, and then they end up being vulnerable in return, and even not. I don't know if they are doing it on purpose, but it feels very great to connect. And actually told us some stories for some kids, and I was really surprised to see that their response to stories was the same. Like they were like, "Oh, this is what I felt as you were telling the story," and then they began to tell some of their own stories. So I really
mm,
love that because as a kid, I didn't share many stories. So to see kids responding in that way was like, that was very important for why I tell as well. For like the little the little 6-year-old me that like held on to every story, like to have him feel like you can share, and not him, but like kids now. So
yeah. So speaking of kids, I think you just started. You just joined a nonprofit that works with kids and stories. Can you tell us a bit about that?
yeah, I just recently joined a program called Roots Connected, and it's a national program where they go and they teach educators or instruct educators on methods that they've learned around an inclusive based school, diversity and inclusion. And really excited to start that. Me and the co-producer of my show um, are doing a workshop for storytelling and really trying to get families to share their stories to build up culture and to understand the family connections and to get their kids to feel comfortable opening up and being themselves.
Yeah.
the program is really focused around seeing the humanity in everybody.
Yeah. That's so great. You have such a strong connection with storytelling that you have different avenues. So you have that. You just mentioned you have a show. So it's called Unreeling. Tell us about your co-host, co-producer, and how that came to be.
Yeah. So the co-producer, Jason Fulford, we we had connected from before. He works at the school where my sons go to school, and we always just had a really cool connection. And we'd always wanted to build something together. We didn't really know what it was, and we threw out a couple of ideas until we kind of landed on the idea of storytelling and really opening up people of color, women, and other underrepresented populations to like share their stories and to not have to hold everything in and repress stories that we've had from, a really long time. And that's how that came about. And since that started, we've, looked to other avenues, and that's how Roots Connected came about. He had a connection to the school and to the people who run it, and they saw us, and it just seemed like, we were on a similar path in terms of what we wanted to do. So it just felt very natural to get involved in Roots Connected, and really any avenue that people have repressed stories. And he's big into the Run for Justice community. So I think a lot of our things that we're thinking about now are the intersection between storytelling and runners. So it's really interesting to see where we're going to go from here.
Yeah. I feel like the the ideas for events or around like fostering community are endless, and it's just a matter of like getting together and deciding, okay, let's do this.
Right.
You are also a published writer and an award-winning storyteller. How did you win an award?
Yeah, just the Moth story slams.
Yeah.
I said July 18th was my 1-year anniversary. So I won 3 Moth story slams over the last 12 months, and was hoping to start to get to do one of the grand slams before COVID shut everything down. So who knows how long that will be until we get around to that again. But I'm really excited to be sharing a story for the Moth main stage, probably in September at the end of the year. Really excited for that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So IRL? Like
That is what they are thinking it will be in September, that things will be back open again. There's quite a few things open in New York now, but I don't think the show of that size is open yet. But in September, that's what they're thinking. And it sounds like regardless, they're going to have the storytellers tell at a venue. So not sitting in your own home.
Okay.
Regardless. So been working with one of the executive producers there, and working on a story that I've never, other than my wife, she's the only other person that's ever heard the story. And that was recent that I told her. So it's a story that was, very painful moment of my life. And I held on to it because I was hoping to erase the memory more than anything. And that obviously didn't work. Like I said, to release these stories, I think, is more powerful than to think it's just going to disappear on its own.
Right. Hence the fact that you were mentioning repressed perspectives, repressed stories from experience.
Yeah, a lot of stories that for me and the people that I look for, I think are the stories that have not been shared, but that are, very deeply rooted in the person, and almost, they're basing their actions off of these some often painful moments in their lives. And just to get to a place where we can be in a community and talk about our pains together and feel uplifted from the people around us rather than feeling alone.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So many projects. And recently we were both participating in the 24-hour True Storytelling Festival online. That was pretty dope. So you,
Yes, that was so awesome.
yeah. So it was in June. We were 17 producers. Yeah, 17 shows as part of the 24-hour True Storytelling Festival. Shows in Europe, in the US, in Canada, in New Zealand. I forget where else. But yeah, so that was, I guess, your first virtual experience as a producer with your co-producer, Jason. How is that?
Yeah, I was really nervous for the idea of doing a virtual storytelling show. One second, sorry.
It's okay.
Maybe we can cut that part.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the virtual storytelling show, I was really nervous for it and um, really excited for it as well. But for me, it was very nerve-wracking to think that like the easiest thing for me was getting in a community of people in person and just like interacting and them seeing that like, you know, we're all human. You can touch me, we can connect. And then not having the greatest handle on switching between this storyteller and that storyteller, and how is that storyteller in their home going to respond to like unmuting themselves or like things that are happening on them. So those things were always in thinking about virtual storytelling really made me nervous, but the
Yeah.
show went really, really well. I couldn't have asked for a better co-host. Jason, you know, hosted the Unreeling Hour, which for me freed me up to really enjoy the hour and to work with the storytellers, which is more of what I enjoy than the hosting itself. I think is talking with storytellers and trying to dig to the bottom of
Yeah.
these really meaningful moments in their lives. And I just felt like it was a really great experience and have been really encouraged to say like virtual storytelling is very powerful medium and actually can reach even broader audience than you would in person. So I really loved it.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I really feel like doing it, like that's how you come to believe because a lot of people like you like don't believe that they will feel connected really because they're on their computer all the time and they don't feel that connection doing other things. Or being in a meeting for work, that's different. Uh,
Right.
yeah, and the stories of the Unreeling Hour during the festival were truly, truly super powerful. So I can't wait to see what you guys do next. Um, you're also writing a book.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the book, I used to really love to write when I was younger, but I just completely stopped. And I didn't really have a plan for a book. I just started sharing the stories on stage. And I noticed that there was something that always kept popping up. I would go onto the stage and I would think I would be telling a story about my mom, or I think I'd be telling a story about my dad. And it would always end up being, regardless of how hard I tried, they would always end up being about race. And that really like signified for me how much race has impacted my life and caused me to act certain ways. And the book, you know, it's a memoir and it looks at my life from childhood to now and how I've dealt with racism and microaggressions in my life. And it kind of transitions from like my adolescence and how I dealt with it with like humor and avoidance into like my young adult years when I dealt with racism with like anger and like blaming and shaming people. And then now as I have gotten a little older and have two, an 8 and a 5-year-old sons, that they've really showed me a lot about myself and how much race has been impacting my life. And it's been more about the acceptance of my truth and trying to get to a place to open up and share. And it really gets around to what's been hurting me a lot since I was little, to want to connect with my family about race-based things that had occurred that I never shared with them and that they really never shared with me either from their lives. So it's it's been a great process to work on the book, and it's brought me closer to my family already. So I'm um, really excited for it, and just finishing up the book proposal, starting to query agents. So
Yeah.
Hope the next time we talk, maybe there will be an agent in my corner.
Yeah, well, best of luck. I'm so excited for your book. How do you feel telling stories on stage or working on stories for the stage has maybe seeped through the writing of the book, in terms of just like the practice and also the way we tell stories orally as opposed to in writing?
Yeah, I think it's been really helpful to have the stage to, I don't want to say practice, because every time I go up, it's like I am sharing a moment from my life. So it's not practice, but it does help me get to the heart of these moments. Like the audience, they kind of feed into this like safety, and they feed into this like desire to know about you. And you, as I lean in, it connects me to, where's the most pain. And for me, anytime I tell a story, there's a lot of pain that's been hidden with other things. Like anger for me is just like a way of hiding the pain. Like this is an
Mm.
easier way to deal with the pain than actually just to talk about the thing that hurts. So that's really informed the writing to get to the heart and find the heart of the story. But one of the challenging things about transitioning from live storytelling to the book, and the book is broken up into short stories. So like
Yeah.
it's very similar to storytelling, but one of the hardest things has been the tenses. Like when you're telling a live story, you can play around with the tense. People are fine with you. They're not reading it on a page and wondering like, why are we now going to the past tense and why are we in the present tense? And
Yeah.
um, doing that work on the page has been very difficult. And then also like building out details that a reader would really want, as opposed to somebody who's listening. They
Mm.
just wouldn't be able to keep up with the amount of details. Like you can't
Right.
throw too many details at a listener, because if they have to stop and think about it, then they're not with you as you're going on to the next part of your story. So it's definitely different, but
Mm.
they've helped. Both of them have helped like the other in one way or another. So it's been great.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I find that um, ever since like I went into live storytelling, so I started a couple of years ago, not too long ago, and then it has informed my writing. I don't write a lot, but I write sometimes. But I find it hard to add anything, because storytelling for the stage is so like you have to be super on point, um,
Yeah.
and get rid of a few adjectives and like like Stephen King says, like kill your darlings,
Yeah.
um, and so I've sort of kept that in writing, and I find it very, very efficient. And then from there, it's hard for me to add details that could go in writing. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And it's interesting because the process for my storytelling, ever since the first story I told, I tried to write the first story and like memorize it. And I took it to like my little writing group to practice on them. And I forgot lines and like was bumbling over it. And they're like, no, just don't write, just like tell the story. And ever since then, I haven't written any of the stories that I tell on stage.
Okay.
I'll like draw them out in scenes and things like that.
Yeah.
Because for my mind, when it's like written, I have to like search for the words that were written. Like those words were so good. Like I have to have them. Like you said, Stephen King talks about killing your baby. And it's been interesting now
Killing your
writing some of
darlings. Don't kill your
darling.
baby.
sorry. Kill your darling, sorry. Now writing some of the stories that are coming, that I'm now telling live, it's interesting where a detail will come to my mind as I'm telling the story, and I'm like, no, like stay focused. Like you can't go on all of these tangents that you would, not even tangents, but you can't, fully describe things as you would when you're writing. So
Yeah.
it's been a little bit of a challenge doing that, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it's also been helpful, like I said. So
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah. That's so great to just like write key points for a story that you're going to tell live to have it more spontaneous. For me, I have to write it out completely just because I'm French. And so I want to make sure that I say exactly what I mean. So I have to like have fully fleshed sentences. And then from there, I can move away and say things a bit differently on the day. But I think if I only have bullet points, then I'm going to search for my words as I do talking to you today. And so, yeah, it kind of like cuts the flow and
Yeah, I
anyway,
understand
my
completely.
own struggle.
Yeah, I understand that. And it's interesting because I feel like that's probably more common to like write and to tell. Um, and I
Mm,
think it's interesting. I want to call myself like a highly emotional storyteller, and would even yeah, I think I would go abandon things that I have even thought about where I feel like I'm feeling an emotion as the story is going along, and I will like lean into that emotion to see like, what's there, which sometimes works out well and sometimes is like, for me looking back, I was like, no, that wasn't good. I don't know if anyone else recognizes because they don't know the story beforehand, but for me, it's like, that was maybe one to not go with the feeling, but it seemed to work out and be authentic to who I am.
yeah.
A lot of friends would describe that I am like the type of person that would, share my heart with the close friends that I have. At least they've always talked about the big heart that I have in terms of how vulnerable I can get.
Mm. Cool. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. And so I'm going to put all the links down below where people can find you and find your show. You are going to go virtual with your show at some point. I will be right there to help you out if you need. And yeah, so I can't wait for people to hear your story on Sunday. I'm so glad to have you on the show again. And yeah, thank you. Any last words?
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I think I want to echo what you said about, seeing your journey online. Obviously, we've never met in person, but really feeling connected to your journey. And I've told you this before, but to pass people along to you whenever I get the chance, because I know how great this work you're doing is, especially with like getting others to open up their virtual shows. And I love that you're doing that and to be able to pass that on. And I'm grateful that you've included me and invited me in your show and encouraged me to take my show virtual and to support that. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.